Welcome to the Wecm Leadership Meeting. I thank you all for being here, and also wanted to express appreciation again to the Coordinating Board for hosting us. And what I'd like to do to start off, if you'll notice, we've repositioned the name cards based on your member position. As a reminder, the folks that are here, there are 9 general elected members that serve on the Wecm Leadership Committee, and then chair, chair-elect, immediate past chair, and then representative from TASTE, TACTI, and TACRO. So if you will, I'd like for you to introduce yourself based on your member number, and we're going to start with number 1.
Hello, I'm Robin Garrett, member 1, current employee of Lone Star College System.
I'm Dwayne Shaw, member 2 from Kilgore College.
Hello, I'm Juan Garcia, and I'm with Texas State Technical College.
Joe Garcia, member 4 with Tarrant County College.
Joyce Williams, member 5 with Dallas County Community College District.
Megan Eichner, member 6 with Amarillo College.
Good morning, Cindy Griffith, member 7 with Alvin Community College.
Kirk White, member 8 with Houston Community College.
Good morning, I'm Terry Nix. I'm ex officio and I'm with Howard College.
Good morning, Shanna Drury, the TACTI representative with Vernon College.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Parks. I'm the fiscal agent for the Wecm Leadership Project, and I'm from San Jacinto College.
Good morning, I'm Catherine O'Brien. I'm chair-elect of the committee, and I am also from San Jacinto College.
Good morning, I'm Don Perry. I serve as your current chair, and I'm with the Dallas County Community College District.
I'm Dwayne Hiller. I'm a program director here at the Coordinating Board.
Faye Murphy, a project director with San Jacinto College.
Gary Tarmelin here at the Coordinating Board.
Frank Graves, McLennan Community College, TASTE president.
Amanda Stratton, McLennan Community College, and I'm the TACRO representative.
Thank you. As much for the benefit of those who might be listening in or who might view this recording later, I wanted to let everyone know that Frank Graves is newly assigned to this group as the TASTE representative, and Amanda is also new to us. Suzanne Carter, who was just been with us a year as the TACRO representative, decided to retire. And so Amanda was kind enough to agree to represent TACRO on the Wecm Leadership Committee. We thank you very much. All right. Faye Murphy has provided before you a copy of the minutes that are contained in this binder of all the information for today's meeting. You may not have had an opportunity to read the minutes. I think Faye did send them out in advance. But what I would like to do is take just a couple of minutes to let y'all review it, and then as chair I will entertain a motion from anyone who would like to make a motion for approval of the minutes or any corrections that might need to be made. I know these are fairly extensive minutes. It takes a little bit of reading to go through all of them.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a recommendation of a change on page 4, item 6, Wecm Leadership Task Group Report.
Yes.
Basically, halfway in the middle of the information here, it says first, college administrators will nominate faculty to serve on the team on one of the 5 teams. The administrators must agree. I think that should be probably better worded as college must agree to pay to travel instead of the administrators.
Right. Anybody see anything else? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the changes made.
Okay.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second by Kirk. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Just out of curiosity, I do have a question after reviewing the minutes. There was a reference in these minutes to the orientation. So at some point today, maybe we can talk about anything related to the orientation.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment, please.
Yes, ma'am.
On how well organized our information is here. So hats off to the project director and the fiscal agent for providing this information. I found it very easy to read over when I received it, and getting here today to see how clear it is. So thank you.
Hear, hear. I think that's hats off to Faye and Karen. And of course, Jeff's fantastic supervision. Okay. Agenda item number 2 is the Wecm Leadership Project Activities Report. Faye Murphy, Wecm Project Director. Faye?
I have provided you a written copy of this entire report simply because it's very hard for you to listen and think about how we want to improve next year. So if you will turn to section 2 of your booklet, page 1, we will look first at the staffing. Last year, we determined that due to the fact that the San Jacinto had both projects, the state programs of study, strategic alignment, and Wecm maintenance, that it might be best if we ran one workshop just immediately before the other, and that we would use the same instructional specialist for both developing the program of study and then revising the Wecm courses. We also knew that we had to train individuals for the future to be facilitators of programs of study. So actually we created a plan so that we could train as we were developing And so we started out with with 2 lead facilitators who really monitored the programs of study. And then we had a team facilitator over each of those areas. And actually, we had one additional, because we had one program of study area that was developed in the summer of last year, so we were only reviewing those courses, and that happened to be real estate. So Chris Duke, who was the facilitator for real estate, joined Robin to learn how to develop a program of study based on our current protocol. And then the Wecm team not only observed, but they helped in those sessions. So we really had almost like double staffing. This was such a wise decision, simply because it helped us to really have the team that could evaluate what was going on and to give a little help. So after we finished the program of study, then we moved directly into the Wecm workshops. And so the program of study facilitators then assisted with the Wecm workshops. And I think basically, as I look back, that I was pleased with the outcomes of this. I felt it was a good plan and it worked real well. In addition to these 2 groups, we had only one Model 2 workshop. And Joyce, who was extremely busy at that time, I asked her to do this because I thought maybe she could have more flexibility in her life. And she did a great job of working with the insurance courses. I was absolutely amazed at how many changes were made in the insurance courses. And I was also pleased that we had this on our nomination form, and we got a nominee from the administrator for insurance. So I hope it made it a little bit easier for you, Joyce.
Microphone.
Not only did we have a nominee from an existing college, but we also had the opportunity to add an additional college that was starting a new program at Houston Community College. And so it was wonderful to see a new innovation of the insurance side versus someone who had been doing it for a number of years. And so to be able to combine those, I think, as you said, it was basically the best of both worlds and the opportunity to observe the differences.
As a matter of fact, you all know that Model 2s can be a real challenge.
Yes.
Because if only a limited number of colleges are offering those courses, at times you will not have a full-time faculty member who is teaching those courses. So it's very hard to get them together. And we've used several strategies, and we want to continue to work on refining that process. But I was very pleased with your work. And Robin, last year, she went online and conducted her Model 2s online. That also is a model that we probably need to really work on. But finding the people is the key.
Faye,
Yes.
if I might, I'm going to interrupt just a moment to provide some context for our members here and anybody that's listening in, that a Model 2 workshop, as Faye alluded to, in the Wecm Protocol Manual, we indicate if a program exists at 4 or fewer institutions across the state, then that's of such small number of institutions that we ask those institutions to work collaboratively together with the oversight supervision of a Wecm leadership person who serves as the facilitator for the process. Very often what we find is for these Model 2s, and this is a leadership committee decision several years back, was that when we tried to bring the institutions to the regular Model 1 Wecm workshops from those Model 2 institutions, those 3 or 4 institutions across the state, most of the time we could not get anybody to attend our workshops. And the problem is that in many cases, the individuals who teach those courses are adjuncts. And so they're not able to travel very easily. And so very often what we wound up having to do was to do WebEx or some web-based means of communication with those 2 or 3 institutions to work the review of the courses. So that's just a way of background so that folks have an understanding of what Model 2 workshops are like.
Part of the Wecm protocol requires board members to participate in the workshops. And yes, indeed, every board member did participate last summer, and I was thrilled to death. Now, when we had the board members participate, this did not allow us to bring as many other individuals in to facilitate, but this year they're going to get a chance. So we'll move on that. But thank you all. I thought you did a marvelous job of a very difficult task. As always, we're concerned about our nomination process. Last year we made some changes because what we realized was we were asking, first of all, administrators to nominate based on zip codes. And I have a feeling our registrars know that zip codes are just not talked about. So therefore, they were kind of lost. I think it did impact the number of nominees because that year it was extremely low. The next year we asked them to nominate based on courses. Well, that was a little bit too refined. This past year we asked them to nominate based on rubric. So the administrators nominated their faculty based on rubric. And then we went to the faculty members with a second request, and we asked them to identify the courses that they had taught in the past 3 years. This worked much better. However, it would take a lot of nominees for us to be able to have a team of instructors who have taught all of those courses. I tried my best, but we had some courses, again, that it was reported that no one in the room had taught the course and they really didn't know the course. That's always a bother, and we'll continue to work on it, but we're not there. So let's look at how many did we nominate. Last year we also had several to drop out because we restricted our teams to 10. So I asked you all if it would be possible for us to accept up to 15. And actually I went over that 15 one time. But I wanted as many as we could have because of this dropout factor. So if you will look again at page 2, you'll see in business administration, we had 20 faculty members nominated. 16 of those faculty members completed the form telling us what courses they had taught. So you see, dropout. And from that group, 15 confirmed, and we rejected 4 because our team was too large, okay? And ultimately, we had 15 to attend, and that was 100% of those that went through the entire process. I continue to want feedback from faculty members to say, are we having too many rounds? But I don't know how we can keep from doing that because we want to be sure that they get the information and that they follow through all the way to arriving at the workshop. Okay, business technology, 16 nominated, 14 accepted, 2 were rejected, 12 attended. And accounting, 13 nominated, 13 accepted, 13 were confirmed, 100% of them attended, and I find that very interesting. Then we got down to real estate, 7 applied, 7 were nominated, 7 accepted, 7 confirmed, and there's a mistake there, and all 7 attended. We had 1 nominee for insurance, and that person did come through, right, Joyce? Okay.
That person did not. However, we had some scheduling conflicts that we tried to work out, and it's lucky for us, Houston Community College, this person came through very well with the information that we needed for changes.
And I'm going to report, I know this is the Wecm Leadership Project, however, I'm going to report on the business side of the programs of study. This was, I think, one of the biggest challenges I've had in a long, long time. And I think that is related to the fact that the programs that we were reviewing this year are not as, well, they don't have certification. They don't have specifics. So you're going to find more general information out there. Employers, probably because there's training in the public schools. We have on-the-job training because they don't have requirements for a degree to get a job. And pretty soon, basically, they probably have a vague idea as to where their students, their employees came from. And that is, you know, just one of those things we have to live with. It was very clear to me that that's the way it was as we began to try to recruit. We felt that we did not want to bring in representatives from advisory committee meetings, simply because we felt we would go back to, I'm here to protect the program that I'm participating in. Anyway, we started out working with the state organizations, state, what am I? TWC and the state Chambers of Commerce. That's what I was trying to think of. Chambers of Commerce. So the state level representatives were very cooperative and they liked the idea, but as we discovered later, because we have members of our committee on chamber boards, and it really did not get to the local level. Now, I don't know whether this was improved it or not. I don't know. However, we did get nominations, and at one point, I thought we were going to fill the slots of having at least 6 on each team. It didn't happen. In business administration, we had 7 that were nominated. 7 accepted. And I say nominated, they filled out an application form, okay? So it's a little bit different than having an administrator nominate them. 7 were confirmed, 3 canceled, and we had 4 in that group. Business office technology, we had 6 nominated. 1 we rejected because they didn't meet the criteria. 5 accepted. 1 canceled, and we had 4. Accounting. This is the one that I thought in the beginning we were really going to fill the group. However, in the end, we only had 3 applications. None were rejected. 3 accepted. 1 was confirmed, and 1 attended. So that one was a bit of a concern to us, and whoever facilitated that group could feel it, okay? Now then, where did the instructional specialists come from? I've provided you a list of colleges that nominated faculty members. This group is smaller than it was last year. And of course, needless to say, I'm always concerned if colleges are not nominating because, you know, number 1, are they getting the information? And number 2, are they having trouble with funds? Because I know many colleges have really cut back on travel. And I always feel that that's kind of sad because the faculty members that come so often say, this is so valuable to me. And so it's one of those things where I just want to be sure that faculty members that feel they need this opportunity are given the opportunity. We have no control over that, but I just know that the information did not get all the way to the appropriate administrator in some of our systems. And that's, if you don't have someone that will help guide that through the process. Who did we contact? We used the coordinating board list of community college contacts. That is a good list, but maybe they didn't know what they were getting. Or maybe they didn't think they had faculty that were interested, because after all, we hold these workshops and school is out, okay? So you're giving up a little bit of vacation time to attend. That may be a factor, but that's the only way that we can do it. So 27 colleges, yes, Dwayne?
Faye, can I make a comment?
Oh, I didn't hear where it came from. Okay.
And this is just sort of reinforce something that we've been doing. And every time we present at TASTE, TACRO, TACD, we really try to encourage people to sign up individually to that listserv, because yes, all of the college district key people are on it, but the more we get of the masses, the faculty and everything that get on that listserv and get the information directly, then you get a little bit of from the ground up swell. When they see it come through, then they're going to their supervisors. So I just would encourage the group to continue to promote across wherever they're in front of faculty or administrators from the colleges to add themselves to that instructional programs listserv so they can get the information as well.
Okay, let's look at our evaluations, and I've placed in your booklet on page 3 the evaluation from the Wecm instructional specialist. As you look at, and you can see that we had 81% of the participants felt that the workshop was above average, with 19 saying it was average. No one rated us as below average, and that's always good. But we have excellent, excellent, excellent comments. I think we had more comments this year maybe than last year. However, I will have to say that with programs of study being so new, they could not get away from programs of study when they were evaluating Wecm, okay? And so it was like, due to the fact this was the second evaluation, they were still thinking about programs of study, and it did impact the overall evaluation. I didn't get any real information about how we could improve the Wecm process, but we got a lot of information about programs of study. Of course, again, they like the facility. They always have a few issues with travel. They were very, very complimentary of the facilitators. They recognize that you have a very difficult job and that you have done it in the most professional way. I mean, in the most professional way. As I worked through the Wecm evaluation, I really couldn't see anything that would guide us toward making any changes. I believe that the nomination process was improved this year and probably does not need to be changed, because we are getting the information we need, and in a timely manner. So I'd like for you to look at some of these comments and see if there's anything in there that hits you as being interesting. I did break it out by group, and did not add names to which facilitator was over each group, but
Faye, I've read through many of the comments listed here, and you're right. They seem to be both positive and negative. Several about the environment, but also several about the process and clarity of the process and all of those. So again, as we start to look at the programs of study, Mr. Chair, and Madam Chair-elect, as we start to look at the programs of study and the Wecm, it may be best for us to figure out a way to refine clarifying the expectations of the process, and which are different processes, and so that the instructional specialists have a better understanding, because all of them are probably used to the Wecm. Some of them are new, have heard about it, but it looks like they got the intent of the program of study which is a different intent of looking at Wecm courses individually and looking at the framework of the program of study, a little bit confused. And so then therefore we have these comments. And since they are public comments, we want to make sure that there is no reflection on the process or the intent or the facilitation of the grant itself, but it's just clarifying the intent of the program of study.
It's a good observation. Thank you.
I was a little bit surprised, Joyce, that it appeared that many of the instructional specialists were not aware of programs of study. And I know it's very hard to communicate with faculty members from the state level. And you're going to have faculty members that really are just not in tune. They are doing their job. They're doing a good job at the local level, but they just have not been able to project out to what's coming next. Some seem to want us to give very specific direction, but we had agreed before we went in that we wanted to be sure we were flexible enough that if another model emerged, that we would allow it. I think the faculty members were not ready for that flexibility. And when I see the criticism of you were not clear on what you expected, I think that was the issue. Joyce, did you have the same feeling?
I did, and it's definitely reflected under the accounting on question 4, where you will see that detail there. But also, in addition to that, maybe we as members of this leadership team have not also done the best due diligence at our colleges to explain the programs of study and get that word out and the intent of the program of study. So maybe as we move along, Madam Chair-elect and Mr. Chair, we could get maybe some elevator speeches. So as we move into this next curriculum cycle of our colleges as faculty are returning back, that becomes part of their orientation for our CTE faculty and our CE faculty to talk about, because we are the closest one to it, to separate the intent of programs of study and Wecm. So as the part of the nomination process, there is an orientation for those administrators who are nominating people for the programs of study. So there's a clear understanding of that, because I do think, based on the accounting information that's here under question 4, you have well-intended faculty that do want to go in that direction, but need more clarification of that. So maybe a guidance paper for us as member of the leaderships, that we can then institute that at our college and have probably a better opportunity for you as you are selecting instructional specialists and those facilitators who are definitely working with the program of study. So that's just my recommendation.
Again, Joyce, I think those are great observations. What I would say is, after we get through with the project director's presentation, I think Dr. Tomerlin is going to chat with us a bit about where things are headed from the coordinating board's perspective, based on passage of legislation. And so hopefully that will provide some guidance to this group as well. So thank you.
There were a few comments that I wanted to pull out some to read, and this will finish my report. Various teams had different thoughts on what was to be done. Okay? A little bit of confusion there. Information presented through different facilitators and specialists had different interpretations. I understand the portability of courses. However, I'm not sure that programs of study will strengthen CTE. And the question was to get them to thinking about how that CTE might or might not be strengthened through state programs of study. And I got some interesting comments in that area, which you all can read. The impact was not clearly stated. Not enough business representatives were present. The workshop was intense but rewarding. Teams often disagree on points but remain flexible, and I thought that was good, and I hope that's what you all experienced. All facilitators had to deal with participant shock. Several comments were made about needing more concrete information prior to the workshop. But of course, the staff, in order to continue to do these projects, we have to look for the points that are praised. Great workshop all the way around. Facilitators did a great job. I have been to many conferences and workshops of many types, and this workshop has been one of the most organized and useful. Okay, pat yourself on the back. All workshops are extremely valuable, and I appreciate being invited to participate. I think the comment that I made last year, and I'm going to end my report with this, we often forget the value of training. And so many faculty members that were new came by to say to me, I learned so much. I want to return. And of course, they're saying to me, if I'm nominated, please let me return, because I learned so much. When you stop to think that we have many program coordinators or faculty members, that is the only person in charge of a program, and they teach most of the courses with part-time faculty. They need friends. And this group do reach out to one another and befriend one another. We could see this in real estate. As we did the program of study last summer, all of the people that participated returned. And I just received all kinds of comments from the instructors saying, oh, it was so good to be able to come back. That's the way we want them to leave, so that they will come back. This was a great year, but very much a challenge. Anybody want to say anything? Yes, Terry.
But on the flip side of that, in the group that I facilitated,
yes,
I believe I had 12 or 14. And in that group, I only had 2 that were returned. Everyone else was new. And I think that is also what we're seeing across the state, is that we have so many new faculty that don't even know what Wecm is. And I think that is our job, because if faculty do not understand the process of Wecm and what we're trying to accomplish, then we're in trouble. And I think that it's important that we continue our work so that they understand how everything is working at a state level, so that they can be productive at their school.
Terry, that's exactly the reason why, and again, I'm not trying to jump on this, but we do need orientation materials.
Also in the booklet, I'll go a little bit beyond, we do have the outcomes from our programs of study, the matrix, and so you can go through and see them. And as I read the comments, I had a question, and that is, how different is this state program from most of the programs, our draft of a program, in the state? And actually in accounting, that's one that I did just yesterday, I created a pivot table showing the number of times that each of the courses were required in an associate degree. And it was interesting because 10 of the 15 top courses in my pivot table were the courses they had selected. So that shows that they did have a feel for courses that were needed, and they did select those courses. However, without the experience of being able to do some analysis, I think it would be very hard for them to say, we did a good job, because they don't know that kind of thing. We did provide some information, but it was probably overwhelming to them. So I think they did a good job. Several indicated that we really needed to follow up the programs of study with surveys of other colleges. And you all, I'm convinced at this point that, I mean, by the way, all the states that I've studied, they develop the programs, but then there's some review by the field. And so I would say my recommendation would be to consider this in the future. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. All right, agenda item number 3 is coordinating board reports and update. We have Donna Carlin, who's joined us now. Welcome, Donna. How are you? Good.
One over here.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A couple of things. I just wanted to say a big thank you to y'all. I know that we, from the time that it took to, from when the proposals were submitted, there were separate proposals submitted for Perkins Leadership Grants for the programs of study, and Wecm was a joint application. And then in the meantime, the legislature was still doing their work. And when it was finally came about that the bill for the programs of study was passed, we did ask Faye to, in a very short period of time, separate the grants out. And so I really appreciate the work that went into that for making that happen. So, and I think that Gary will probably be talking more about programs of study, and the coordinating board's process for that. And I don't know if you've talked about this yet, because there was a period when I couldn't hear the broadcast. So, we did ask, again, in the interest of time, that you still look at a few things as far as the grant goes, as far as things like the bus transportation. I know that's a very large amount of money. The $8,000 that was projected for the need for the bus to go from the hotel back to the San Jacinto Transportation Center. So to look at things like that and really look at identifying when the meetings need to occur that are face-to-face versus the, I know I'm going to say the wrong word, it's not level 2. Model 2, okay. Model 2. Yes, so face-to-face versus Model 2, really just in the interest of saving money. And with the third thing is with the new uniform grant guidance, I think it's getting more difficult to justify the need for food to be served at meetings. That's not to say that it's not possible. I think especially with, Faye has indicated that the majority of participants this summer that came to the workshop did fly, so that is difficult to get to a lunch location when you don't have a car. So I think just a word to the wise to really, really justify the need for any food to be served for anything that's happening with the grant because of those new, more stringent grant guidelines. So, any questions about any of that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Gary, you want Dwayne to go ahead? Okay, Dwayne?
Well, just briefly, we have received all the course updates from the summer workshops, and we're still going through those. I mean, there's not really much to go through. It's just a matter of making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and everything. But we should have those posted on the website, the Wecm Workshops website, by the end of the month, hopefully by August 15th, but certainly by the end of August. And we have in the past couple of weeks posted the previous 2 years, the 2013 and 2014 workshop results. So those are now available. But the 2015 workshop results, like I said, would be most likely available by the end of the month. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, sir. Yeah, this group had asked the coordinating board, if at all possible, to see if we could get the new Wecm update out by the third week of August, since faculty return generally on that week, and faculty are anxious always to see, especially those faculty who attended the Wecm workshops earlier in the summer, since we do not allow them to take anything away from the workshops, but because basically that's still kind of draft until they're finalized. So they are very anxious to see the results of their work, plus the state at large wants to see, anything that's new or changed, or those that are going to be archived, where they're going to lose funding for those courses. They need to know that quickly. So getting the Wecm out when faculty return is very important. So, Dwayne, thank you for your hard work to help ensure that that happens. Dr. Tomerlin, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank y'all for inviting me, and good work. Thank you always. I guess I've got a little list here, and perhaps I should start with not a Wecm issue, but share this with y'all. The USS Battleship THECB, or the Dreadnought THECB, or whatever. We've had some significant network issues the past couple of days.
We've noticed.
And so if you've tried to communicate with us, we probably didn't get it. Just sharing information. I knew that there was an email issue. I composed an email. I saved it in my draft, and I know I saved it there, and then it was gone, and it's not in my sent folder box. And so I emailed the person again and said, if you're getting this twice, just by the way. But anyway, they're working diligently trying to get that stuff restored and up and running, and so hopefully everything will return to order as quickly as possible, and we will communicate hopefully as quickly as possible. We might all have 300 emails out there somewhere that we don't know of, but anyway. I want to comment a little bit about the information that was shared by Faye and Joyce and others. I agree the need for professional development is very important, and we partnered. I think we've talked about this at previous meetings of how the coordinating board and this group partnered on the health science disciplines back in February in changes related to the 60 semester credit hour limitations. And I think that was a very productive meeting. We brought in, I think it was about 120 people, somewhere in that ballpark, give or take, faculty and administrators, and it was conversation. And I think it was really kind of amazing that some of those groups, when they got together and they really rolled up their shirt sleeves and went to work, that they really realized the level of commonality that they all have the same end goal. And so I think that's a very important thing that we need to keep in our minds, in the back of our minds, and move it to the forefront of how do we do professional development. Because I think administrators, for the most part, understand programs of study. And perhaps they don't understand programs of study. Wait a minute, I think I just called it. No, never mind. Perhaps they've heard the language over and over, and they know this is part of it. And it's not so much that it's the state conversation. Obviously, we, the coordinating board, have to champion, but it's really kind of a national call, and hence that's why it's a state issue. But so helping the people understand that, yes, we're going to have to give up some of my courses, but it's really about helping the students at the end of the day. And so much of the time, I think when you sit down and you talk with faculty, it's not that the course is unique, it's that they want to do some classroom activity, some kind of whatever it is to meet their local need, that they think they need a separate course for that. And I think that's really and truly the piece we need to communicate, that it's not always a unique course. But anyway, so with that said, I will talk about HB 2628, which we refer to around here as the Field of Study Program of Study Bill. It was passed by the legislature. As y'all are probably aware, fields of study have been in statute for many years, about 15 years. Fields of study require the coordinating board to develop committees to identify the lower level courses that transfer into a baccalaureate degree. The coordinating board took this on about 12, 13, 15 years ago, developed 8 or 9 of them. They've sat there since then. We're in the process of dusting those off. We started engineering back in March. That group's met a couple of times. They're meeting again soon. Next 10 days or so, I think it is. And then at the July board meeting, the music group was, those appointments were approved by the board. and that group is meeting, I believe it's the 11th. And so from there, we have a position that we have morphed the position, and it's going to be kind of a 50-50 kind of thing, where the person's going to work 50% on fields of study and 50% on programs of study. We are having conversations about which disciplines we're going to do next, and at what level we can accelerate this, and how many we can do at one time. I think y'all probably know a little bit of this, but if you start working with, say, 12 groups as an example, and they meet quarterly, well, 12 times 4 is 48. That's a meeting a week, and so that can get pretty challenging pretty quick. But obviously, we want to accelerate it at a pace that we can afford to sustain and get groups together. But I think it's an important conversation that hopefully we're shifting the conversation away from transferability. And it's not really about courses that transfer, because technically courses all transfer. I was talking to somebody recently, and they talked about that they, at one point in their career, had completed 58 hours of a doctorate or some number like that, and they were forced to quit or didn't get the dissertation done or whatever occurred, and they were starting another program. And I think they got maybe 3 hours, 6 hours of those 58 that applied into the new program they were starting. So in essence, they're coming real close to starting over. And, technically they all transferred. The problem is they didn't really count. And so we've got to shift it away from what transfers to what applies, to what squares fill. And, we right now in the national literature, it's about guided pathways. This is in the new strategic plan. It's about getting students direction and getting them out. The 60 semester credit hour limitations imposed from the last legislative session, the 83rd, is about trying to get the excess hours to a degree. I think programs of study and fields of study fit exactly the same, of trying to get the students a pathway through college. But with that said, House Bill 2628, I guess two different components of it that are relevant to this group. It requires us to look at the fields of study on a regular cycle. I don't know exactly what that regular cycle is going to be. We have to form our board committees by statute, and by statute they have a 4-year term limit unless they're recreated by our board. And so our kind of conversation right now is naming the committee, have the committee do its work before the members' terms expire, have them come back in and either restart the conversation if changes are needed, or reaffirm that this is still current and relevant, and then we'll put the committee together again later. So that's kind of how we have to work. But then the programs of study, the bill kind of mirrors the language of the fields of study, but of course programs of study are more from the high school to the community college piece or the technical education piece. This was a coordinating board initiative, but then once the bill was passed through the legislature, the governor actually endorsed the bill at an educational bill signing and said that it was part of his blueprint for educational reform. And so I think that kind of shows you the priority or the emphasis that getting students out is important. And so with that said, the information I'm going to give you right now today is the best information that I know. And that information could change. But I believe the path we're headed down the road is that we will be adopting rules through the regular rulemaking process, the public comment period, and that kind of stuff about programs of study. And then we will ask the board to appoint a program of study committee. It'll be a standing committee, just like the field of study committees and our other board committees, UEAC, ACGM, so forth. And that committee will provide guidance to the board, to our team, myself, Dwayne, Donna, and others, as we work to then build the programs of study. And the question of that is, how do we merge Wecm and the program of study process, which, this group, we've had extended conversations about this, both publicly and in conference rooms and other places, about how we do this. Quite honestly, I've got a better visual of it right now, of what it looks like 10 years down the road than I do the next 6 months. But I think from as an analogy, if you will, it's kind of like I-35 out here behind us at rush hour, to where all the different cars and trucks represent the courses, and the freeway is where we're trying to go, and then we're at the on-ramp of how do we merge these programs of study and fields of study, not fields of study, excuse me, the programs of study and Wecm. How do we get to the common courses? How do we help faculty and others understand that we're not trying to do harm? I don't know if any of y'all or if the people listening follow the Community and Technical College Leadership Council, but this was discussed at the June meeting, and there was kind of a question about, does that mean my program might change? And the answer is yes, but hopefully it's about changing for the better. Hopefully it's about getting to the point to where if we have more of a common XYZ program, whatever the discipline of the program is, that if the faculty come together, they can have a conversation about how they're helping students be more successful. And of course, more than anything else, and y'all know these stories as well as I do, that you've been at the Wecm workshops, you were at the colleges. There's issues within some of the large college districts where this campus requires the 3-hour course and that campus requires the 4-hour course, and they won't go across town, or this college has this and that college has that. And we know our students, they don't start at our colleges and finish at our colleges. I mean, I think if you go look at the data right now, most students attend at least 3 colleges before they get a credential. We've got to help as much as we can to help those students be successful. And then I think we've got to help business and industry be more responsive. We've got to help them understand that, yes, the community colleges in Texas are local, but really and truly the local control of the community colleges, they're really the community college system of Texas, because they're providing the workforce needs of Texas. And, right now they're kind of all one-off. We got to kind of find a way to address that and speak to that while we still meet the local needs. But then again, we know a student might graduate out of Dallas County or whatever and move to Houston, or perhaps the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex might be a good example, to where you have Tarrant County College, Dallas County College, and Collin up there, and then Navarro is just slightly to the south, and Weatherford slightly to the west, and then the East Texas colleges. Potentially, with the consolidation in the health science industry, a student can go to work at any one of the medical centers up there and then get transferred to virtually any of those cities. We hired you here in Dallas, but now we really need you to work in Fort Worth. And some of the distances you can commute, and some of the distances you can't. You might have to move, but then the other side of the coin is potentially a student applies after graduating in Tyler, and are like, well, we're full right now, and you're well qualified, but Fort Worth has an opening, or Weatherford has an opening. Would you be interested in going over there? And so I think part of that is what we've got to speak to and what we've got to address and serve the students of Texas. And then. As I talk about the students and business, we've got to be responsive. And I'm not criticizing this group, but I was just told recently that some courses in a discipline changed about 2 years ago, and because of our regular review cycle and process, we just haven't reviewed those yet. We've got to find a way to review those kind of things quicker, respond to needs, be adaptive to needs. I don't know if a new, I don't know, there's the drone aircrafts and all that kind of stuff. FAA is talking about doing some changes, and of course this group has partnered, and we're kind of facilitating a conversation and following that through of how do we work with FAA and the aviation industry and change the courses to meet the needs concurrently so that we're responsive. And I guess my last comment is I think we know that education is always the stepchild for being slow and unresponsive and that kind of stuff. John Carter wrote Our Iceberg is Melting and a Sense of Urgency and other books, and he writes about change and change management and that kind of stuff. And he has a list of the 8 barriers to change, and the 8th thing on the list, and he says it's the biggest challenge, is culture and tradition. And higher ed hangs its hat on culture and tradition, right? And so somehow or another we've got to find a way to be responsive, adaptive, and move into this new paradigm that we're headed down the road of. And I said that was going to be my last thing. One more comment, and then I'll be quiet. The national agenda, national legislation, and Don Perry can probably speak to this better than I can, but you're getting a consolidation of all of the pieces of federal legislation related to workforce and providing services to the needy, the people that are perhaps unemployed or underemployed. And so what conversation is that eventually all of the Department of Labor, Department of Education, Health and Human Services will all have one plan with one strategy of how to help the people, the students that we're talking about. And so programs of study are a part of that. And so with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to get Dwayne to answer them.
Thank you. I think the observation that I have, and this group needs to kind of get a sense of, Gary, is that this is going to be a real transition year. My sense is that from the Wecm leadership group perspective, our obligation is to continue making sure that the Wecm maintenance process continues as the coordinating board is building the system by which programs of study will occur. And sometime in the near future, I'm assuming that we'll see the dovetailing of the work that the Wecm Leadership Committee does along with the new program of study initiative. But for now, we have to make sure that those courses that need to be reviewed next summer get reviewed next summer.
Well, I think it's very important, yes, that we keep our existing course inventory current, relevant, viable, that kind of stuff. Right. And as I basically said, if there's some new technology out there that all of a sudden falls in our laps, right, we need to find a way to be responsive to that. Right.
Actually, we do have, as you know, we have models already created in the protocol manual. And again, I'm not trying to be difficult or negative, but part of the issue has to deal with when we're limited by budget and we have to document in advance of what we're going to do for the year for the plan, then that limits our ability to be responsive on an ad hoc basis.
Well, I understand that, and of course, you know, the answer, the reason the budgets are created up front is because we allocate as much of the money as we can out to the field.
We understand that.
To help the fields meet their needs, you know. So we don't. I've got my phone in my pocket, not cash. You know. I
understand.
So we understand that. Perhaps part of it is I talked about that we have a position that we have morphed a position, and we're headed down the road of a 50-50 kind of thing. I already talked about that. Right. We did the posting, and of the applicants we screened and interviewed, we didn't quite find the skill set that we thought we were looking for, and Donna's in the process of trying to get that reposted, and it's with our HR people right now.
Sure.
Kind of like some of those emails I talked about. No, I shouldn't talk about our HR people, but we're trying to get it through the process. So I hope my message is that we are working together with y'all, and as I say with y'all, I really kind of mean the field as a whole. But and you know, I'll just throw this out on the table: is I think we've got to figure out a way to not review all the courses all the time. I've talked about this before, and you know, my personal experience before I came here. I think the last Wecm group that I facilitated was the automotive paint and body. And it was in Midland, and it was hot, but it's always hot in Midland, but that's a different story. But that group, as I recall, we finished in about 3 hours because I think our courses have reached a level of maturity because we've had the database for 20 years. The majority of the courses have reached a level of maturity. We've done a little bit of anecdotal analysis, I wouldn't call it a research, of a lot of what we're changing in courses now is wordsmithing. Yes, I know we had nursing year before last, I guess it was, that was a major change. Right. You know, so yes, we do have some major changes. How do we deal with major changes? Minor changes, if they're relevant, how do we do that? And you know, as I talk about this, I'm talking about these as questions. How do we do it? Because I don't know the answer.
Actually, I think you're raising a good point. I do. I really do. I think you raise a very good point.
Perhaps, what if, and you know, if our strategic planning and funding people are listening, I'm not even sure this is possible, but I'm pretty sure it's possible. What if when we're putting together the workshops for this coming summer, if we only reviewed the courses that have been reported as for funding the past couple of years, you know, whether we pull them off of the S report or the 4 report, perhaps, you know, thinking out loud here, if we go in and we look at what has been reported for funding and we send them to the groups in advance, and I don't know, let's say there's 12 courses in automotive paint and body will be up this summer. If there's 12 courses and there's really not much conversation from last time, and they say, no, we're pretty good, then perhaps we don't do automotive. But then if there's something else that needs to be done, perhaps we do. But you know, all I'm trying to say is I think we all know with programs of study and Wecm, my freeway merge example, federal legislation, the game as we know it is changing.
Right.
And yes, it's great of the process that's been done the past 20 years. Dwayne can speak to this better than I can, and as can you, Don, and others, of the first iteration of Wecm, the second iteration of Wecm, but every course has probably been reviewed 5 or 6 times now. So how do we find a way to keep us current and relevant as a state, but then be efficient with the scarce money? And I think we probably all know that I think the money machine, the money maker, Joyce, is taking hits on all sides. And so this is just, and it's a conversation. I don't know the answer to it.
I think it's a worthy conversation. I do. You know, that's something that I think this group has always prided itself in, and that's the willingness to look at new ways of approaching the process. And so I would challenge us, take your challenge and challenge ourselves to take a look at our current processes and see if there are better ways, more efficient ways of doing the business that we need to do, and yet still ensure that we have currency in the process.
And that really ties into the comments that I made earlier for the grant year, really examining when you need to work face-to-face versus the Model 2.
Actually, I was a little confused by the wording of that comment to the project when I read it. So that helps define that for me now. Thank you.
And
Joyce?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a few comments. Dr. Tomlin, I am pleased to hear about the position being coupled to look at the programs of study and field of study. And I'd like to recommend criminal justice be one of the first ones out the loop for that person to look at, simply because on the CTE side and on the field of study side, those courses are shared a lot. So that would be a great program to start with if we're looking at programs of study and field of study for that faculty because they probably teach on both sides, CTE and ACGM. And so looking at that, it would be, I think, an ultimate opportunity for where you want to go with this to be able to see that. I also think that the possibility of looking at courses that are triggered by special topics and local needs would be more of in line with what you're looking at as far as looking at decreasing the courses that we reviewed before, simply because of the fact that a lot of the institutions now are doing continuing education as to look at immediate business needs for certifications, but they end up being also on the credit side of the house. The other part of that, a lot of credit programs are looking at local need courses and creating those. Would be definitely, we have those as triggers as part of our protocol. We have a number of triggers as part of our protocol. So perhaps if we looked at triggers, those things that have been triggered, courses that have been triggered, we could then limit the number, again, of duplicate courses. One other thing I'd like to also comment on as we talk about regional efforts, and an example of that, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that we have a large employer that actually is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area where they have many locations in Tarrant County. They have their headquarters is in Dallas County, and they have locations that's actually in Terrell. So what you presented is the reality for us, and we're living that reality. And none of the three colleges have been able to address the full need of this industry, because this industry is so diverse in the products that they use and the technology that they use. And so I think you're right as we start to look at addressing workforce needs for a region, very much like the South Texas region that you all have done with Petrochem, and pulling that together and being able to address those needs. Those are the things that community colleges are going to need to be able to partner with the coordinating board with as we start to look at different projects that are coming from programs of study, and perhaps that's where we start. Again, all of these things are not new to us. It's the tree model that we started with 3 years ago. It's how do we bring that now to the forefront? 5 years ago. Okay. So I just want to say that I think we're all speaking the same language. Is how do we do this partnership and get where we need to be? Those are my comments.
And Don, if I could.
Yes, sir.
A couple of comments, please. Well, I was at a conference in Utah last week, and actually one of the presenters, and it was actually very cool in Utah last week. Maybe I should share that as well. But one of the presenters, and it was a national convening. It's called the National Council of State Directors of Community Colleges, and so it's basically people that kind of have my job in each state, more or less. And the group was talking, there were presenters, and they were talking about some of the same things that we're talking about. But actually, one of the presenters was talking about the quality of the Texas data, and they had extracted from our website the graduates and the salary information from the petrochem industry. And they were the presenter was talking about how well and how responsive Texas has been to the industry and how well the students are doing. And it's about the conversation about it's not always a bachelor's degree, but the value of an associate degree and a certificate, which we know that, and we also know the bachelor's degree is important as well. But Don, you mentioned a set budget and then flexibility and adaptability, and we understand that. And I know y'all know this, but as the February workshop that we worked with y'all to put together, we were able to amend the budget and put in $10,000. I think it was $10,000 to help do that. So we understand that if we come to you and ask work, and of course, first of all, thank you for the work you do. I think it's important for the field to understand of this needs to be a field-driven process as much as it can be while we meet statute, and we do, as our name says, the coordinating piece of it. So I think that's important. If we wanted to do programs of study, we could do it very cheaply. We could just go in and identify from the data, as Faye said, the courses that everybody's using and archive the rest. That's not what this conversation is about. But then, based on the reports turned in by the projects at the end of May, 1st of June, both projects had used about 1/3 of their total budgets, I think is what we looked at, as I recall. So, I say these things toward, that it's our job to analyze the budgets, to scrutinize the budgets, to try to understand the changing federal regulations, and to help y'all stay out of trouble. I mean, quite honestly. I don't think Joyce would look good in an orange jumpsuit, quite honestly. But
I think I look good in every color.
Not my color.
But it's while sometimes perhaps it's might be that we're insensitive, unresponsive, or any other words that you might want to use with a negative conjunction. Sometimes our hands are tied and we have to work through our processes, but we do understand the vision, I think.
I want to make sure that other members who wish to react, respond, ask questions, whatever, that you have an opportunity to do so. That's the reason why we're here.
Reason why it worked.
Gary, I do have one concern about looking at data only. And, I work in both the Wecm and the ACGM world, and I have seen courses that are disappearing out of the ACGM that are courses in sequence within the dance area. Jazz 1, 2, 3, and 4. Jazz 2 and 3 were pulled out of Wecm. Jazz 1 and 4 are left in place. So just a word of caution about looking at those. And I know part of that issue is because the universities have those numbers as well, and they don't always report the frequency of data. So we have to be, again, a word of caution about just using the data. We do have a process in place for saving courses in Wecm that get put on the archive list, and thus far that has worked very well, and I think that's something that may need to stay in place because, again, the data is not always as reliable as we would like it to be. But I think it is a good place to start, and after this summer's workshops, we all agreed that there needed to be more pre-data analysis before we handed the courses over to the 3 programs that we worked with this summer.
I will say, and this is really going back in history, probably Faye, if Nina were here, she would remember this. The rest of y'all are so young.
You're so sweet.
Thank you.
After the Wecm was first created, and that were the years of 1995 to 98, during that 3-year period of time, I kept saying to the folks at the coordinating board at that time, once you start walking down this road, you're committed to walking down this road. And that is, you have to review what you've just created. Mm-hmm. So we wound up creating a Wecm review process. But the folks in the leadership at that time at the coordinating board, again, part of it was just because of budgets and everything else, basically said, well, y'all can't, there's not enough money to review all these courses. So basically what was agreed to was to use the initial first triggers, Joyce, and those first triggers were local need and special topics. And in fact, Janice Hutchins had the Wecm maintenance process at that time, And so for 3 years, only courses out of the Wecm, either on the credit or the CE side, only those courses that were submitted through special topics and local needs got reviewed. Well, that thought was good in the beginning, but then lo and behold, we found out that we at that time did not have the trigger related to changes in licensure and certification. And there had been changes in nursing. But it wound up going through local needs and special topics first, and then, so the point being is that, again, we have to be somewhat careful. Now we do have a set of protocols of triggers that Joyce referenced, including changes in licensure and certification, change in technology, and that kind of stuff. So I think if we honored our trigger system in the protocol, that we probably could, by and large, come up with course review processes that would ensure currency based on those triggers, rather than reviewing every course that's in the inventory. So I think that's some good thoughts.
Mr. Chair, we would also have to have a different partnership with the coordinating board in order to do that. Very much like that partnership we had with Janice back then.
Yes.
We would get information on a 30-day notice.
Right.
And so being able to have that information quicker.
Mm-hmm.
We would, in order so that we could have the project director be able to plan those workshops and all of those other things, especially if we're dependent on technology in which those are triggered. So we would need a different type of process that you all have now at the coordinating board in order for us to set that up.
And that's something that possibly the leadership group might want to task to the task group to take a look at.
And a couple of comments, if I can, please. First of all, let me introduce my data guru, Dwayne Hiller.
Yes.
He's all data all the time.
Yes.
He pretty much can ask for and get on pretty quick turnaround, generally speaking. Now, some of the enrollment stuff might be a little bit slower because it has to go through the current enrollment stuff, because it has to go through the certification process and all that kind of stuff. So that stuff has its time cycles. And so that's a piece of it. But yes, certainly we can take a look at those kind of things. I mean, as we're discussing, it's a conversation. We're not making a decision today, I don't think.
Right.
But and perhaps to expand upon programs of study a little bit, just especially primarily for the field, I think y'all are aware of this. There's no conversation about developing a program of study and putting it on a shelf and pronouncing it good from now until the end of time. Right. Just like we review courses, we know programs of study will have to have some kind of review, iterative process of keeping them current and relevant. I know I spoke to that on the fields of study. Maybe I didn't specifically say it on the programs of study. I think I implied it. But And of course, I think a lot of this conversation is how does the program of study process and the Wecm process merge or marry?
Right.
And I said this, that I think 10 years from now, the course review process from programs of study will just be an oh, by the way kind of thing, whereas right now we're trying to get one process started, and I'm gonna say close out, but notice I said 10 years, okay? Make sure I clarify what I said. And I don't know if 10 years is the number, so don't write that down either. But there's going to be some time interval as we ramp up programs of study and the Wecm process goes away.
Hand in hand. Yeah, it becomes one process.
The Wecm database, I think, will always exist until it gets renamed or something. Right. But so I think that's the conversation we're having. And of course, many of y'all on this team, we've talked about this for several years. We have seen this point in time through the train tunnel, if you will. We've seen that light. Well, that light is bright and in front of us now. Yeah. And
I will say this. And I think this group, and I would encourage, and I'm sure Gary, I'm not reminding you of anything that you really don't know in your own mind, but Wecm also serves the CE side of things, and programs of study, at least nationally, has not necessarily conceived of programs of study as being all-inclusive of CE. So I think we do have to stay mindful that what we do in terms of keeping Wecm responsive on the continuing ed side, workforce continuing ed side, is very, very critical to this state and our institution's abilities to respond to economic and workforce needs of our local communities and businesses.
And just as an adjunct to that, you said on the national level, CE's not really been part of the conversation. I do want to encourage that we continue to make it a part of the conversation here on the state level in programs of study, because although it hasn't explicitly had a lot of time spent on the national level, the concept of stackable certificates implies everything from
I agree.
CE all the way up through
I agree,
bachelor's.
Kurt.
So,
and that's something that I have tried to remind this group as we continue to move forward that CE needs to be thought on the front end of programs of study and on the back end of programs of study.
I've always said it's the entry level and the graduate
that's
school.
Right. CE needs to be thought as the bookend to programs of study.
You know, if I could share with the group, there's a summit, I believe it's the first week of October, and it's kind of a who's who in CE. The meeting's actually in Orlando, but it is the National Council of State Directors of CTE, the State Directors of Community Colleges. I talked about that group. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, many others are the ones that are doing this convening, and basically they've invited 2 people from each state. And it's really, they're calling it a CTE summit, and it's kind of like, what does CTE in the future look like? And so I think that's going to be a pretty interesting thing. CE is in the advanced information that they're sending and putting out. And as I say, United States, it also includes the U.S. territory. So it's going to be quite a large convening, and that should be fun. For those of you that are on TACTI, I actually return from that meeting, and then TACTI is on Friday, I guess, but that's October.
All right. Well, in order to keep the agenda moving here, again, thank you very much, Donna, Dwayne, and Gary. We are now going to move into agenda item number 4, the organizational reports and updates, and we'll start first with TACE. Frank.
Morning.
Morning.
So I guess to give an update, certainly from our membership, we've certainly seen an increase in the number of memberships as far as from the colleges. And then when we look at our conference participation, we certainly are up there as far as numbers there. I do think there's a significant need for certainly some of the discussions that we're having here about the knowledge and CE's role in a lot of these programs, that to be able to filter down to those individuals. And I say that new enrollment, when we do like a new employee type of our new member, there's about a 25% of the folks that show up at the conference, 20% are new, so they would even lack some of the basic Wecm type skills or knowledge. And so that will certainly be what will guide us through the next year as far as not just at the conference, but what are the things that we can do to make them more aware of the Wecm process.
Right. Good, Frank. Actually, one of the efforts that we try to do through the project is to be willing to provide speakers to the various professional associations. So if TACE wishes a representative from the Leadership Project group to attend one of these your conference and give a presentation, what we try to do is we try to, at the encouragement of the coordinating board, is to, again, to save dollars, is that if somebody from this leadership group is going to be at that conference anyway, that we ask that that person be a presenter at that conference so that there's not additional expenses borne by the project itself to do that presentation. So.
Continues to work well, and we do host regional meetings,
right,
which we haven't addressed. Maybe that might be even a more economical way.
Right. I am aware that y'all do regional meetings, and I think that's a good suggestion, Frank. So if you would let Faye know when those regional meetings are going to be held, we'll try to see if we can get a Wecm Leadership Committee member to attend and give updates related to Wecm. Okay, thank you. Okay, TACTI.
I'd like to put everybody on their calendars. October 7th through the 9th will be the TCCIL conference, and that is conducted by 3 of our 8 organizations, TACE, TACTI, and TCCIA. The theme this year is Understanding the Students of the 21st Century. So we hope to tackle that topic. And to tack on to what Frank said as well, I conduct the new membership orientation for TACTI at our spring conference every year, and we have 15 to 20 new members every time. So we're seeing that transition as well. So the more information we can get out to those new members, the better. But I also think that, and I'm not for sure, but I think there will be a facilitator and training pre-conference. Is that correct? Before the TCCIL conference. So we encourage more fits throughout our communities.
Shanna, we may need some help in getting the word out, because I know there are a lot of people who would like to have this training, would like to get involved, and I just want to be sure we get the information to the right people.
If we can get that information, I'll send it out through the TACTI listserv. That'll be the best way to get that word out.
Thank you.
Shannon, can you tell whether TCCIL will be?
Where it will be? I'm sorry, Joyce. It will be in Austin, downtown Omni. Yes, Omni downtown.
And if I could make a comment about sending out information about FIT training, I would encourage it also go out on the TASTE listserv too, because traditionally we've tried to get CE folks to be facilitators as well, because we don't have a strong CE faculty presence at the workshops. So often it's the facilitators that are ones that are keeping the CE flag flying and reminding how it impacts CE.
Good comment, Kurt. And now TACRO. Amanda?
I just want to let you guys know that the TACRO conference will be held in Houston this year, November 8th through the 11th. And the topic or the theme is Reaching New Heights. Other than that, the TACRO body seems to be growing and thriving. And I am excited to learn more about everything that's going on here, and I appreciate you guys having me here today.
Well, thank you for agreeing to serve, and I know that y'all just had your summer meeting just last week, wasn't it, or the week before?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
They were the week of July 15th.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I went at the end of the week, so that was the middle of the week, so July 13th or so through the 17th, I think.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Very good.
And that was a good turnout. In fact, it's not far from here where we hold those meetings.
Right.
And the rooms were packed. There were, I think they said over 200 attendees, maybe somewhere in there. I may be wrong, but. Yeah.
Well, I just from the folks that attended from Dallas, what they said was there was standing room only in one particular one, and that was related to dual credit.
Yes.
So I think Andrew Lofters had his hands full on that one.
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
And Amanda, typically Wecm does a presentation at Wecm Leadership at TACRO, so y'all will work those details out.
For sure, we can get together and work on that.
Good. Thank you, Robin, for that reminder. Well, again, I know maybe for some of y'all coming all this way to sit and listen to the rest of us talk is a long day, but we do appreciate your presence and your willingness to assist in this activity. Okay, agenda item number 5 is Wecm protocol. Catherine O'Brien, who is the chair-elect, just for information for everyone, the person who serves as chair-elect becomes the keeper of the protocol manual that we go by. By way of information, the Wecm protocol manual is actually available on the Coordinating Board's website, right where the Wecm search engine is located. There's the user's guide for how to use the search engine, and then also related to that is the protocol manual. So, yes.
Mr. Chair, can we have about a 5-minute break?
Sure, we may.
Protocol?
That's a good point. Thank you. We will break for 10 minutes. We'll wait just a couple of minutes until we get everybody back. Okay, agenda item number 5 is the Wecm protocol. Catherine O'Brien is, as chair-elect, as I was stating before we took the break, the chair-elect is the keeper of the Wecm protocol manual. Again, especially for the benefit of those who might be listening in now or later, almost from the very inception of the Wecm itself, the individuals who were involved at that time, and still everybody who's been involved with Wecm leadership over the years, felt the keen responsibility of ensuring that we have well thought out procedures and processes to oversee the Wecm in the state of Texas. So we created a manual of these procedures that we call Wecm protocols, and we routinely review those procedures to ensure that they stay current and responsive to the needs of our institutions. And so, again, the role of the chair-elect is to maintain the protocol manual and to bring forward to the membership any ideas that the chair-elect may have, but also any member or the group itself at large at a meeting or at some point in time, if we believe that a particular protocol or more than one needs to be reviewed, then the chair-elect, either individually or they may seek out the service of other members of the leadership committee to assist in a subcommittee to review a particular protocol or more than one, and then to bring back recommendations for changes. So I'm going to, after saying that, then turn this over to Catherine and let her kind of give us an overview of where things stand at this point.
Thank you, Don. Let me say that seek out was the first thing that I did in looking at these, and I would like to thank Robin Garrett, Kirk White, and Jeff Parks for working with me. We did conference calls, and we looked over the protocols. The first thing we did was to propose changing the title to like programs of study and, Wecm protocols. As of today, we'll be revising that or reversing that process. One of the other things that we talked about is now that GIPWE has been approved, when we started working through the protocols, and I do mean one at a time, we went through. And Chapter 1 is really all about courses. It's special topics courses. It's local need courses. It's the learning experience. we realized that everything that is in Chapter 1 is truly a duplication of what is or should be in GIPWE. And we were going to bring forth the recommendation to you that Chapter 1 be removed from the protocols. And yet, another issue has come up in that if you are familiar with the chart for allowable hours, the chart itself is both in the protocol manual and in GIPWE, but one of the issues is that it really in GIPWE does not give a good definition of how a credit hour is calculated. And Dina sent me an email and some recommendations with regard to this. This has to do with, again, the national conversation and what has become a state conversation around competency-based education and what is going to be the difference between seat time, credit hours, and achieving those competencies. And I just left a LEAP Texas conference earlier this week and heard a very good presentation on competency-based education out of Dallas's El Centro campus. So I'm looking right now to this body for some guidance about whether or not to remove the duplicated information that is in GIPWE or leave it, I guess, for at least another year because of the changes that are taking place with the programs of study. Any information that we added about programs of study, I'm going to say that we're going to probably take all of that out. There may be some kind of a cursory mention of programs of study. Where we were...
I think Gary...
Okay.
Our internal conversation, just for information's sake, is I believe there will eventually be a program of study chapter added to GIPWE.
Okay.
That's not definitive at this time, but that's kind of some... conversation that we've had internally. That's kind of the direction we're moving.
That makes sense.
But it's not definitive by any means, nor is it written. So
okay. Then Gary, let me propose this then, as if we do, if the guidance from this group is that we remove the information, I will not delete it from existence. I will turn over to you then some of the wording and so forth, and just share that with the coordinating board.
Well, and again, internal conversation. I think it was 3 years ago there was a project where one of the outcomes was to develop the program of study protocol manual. Some work was done on that, and some of the information was put together. And I think we take that work as the starting point. But then on some of this, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, if you will, because as I've discussed, I'm assuming we have this program of study committee, but a lot of this is it's being defined and it's evolving as we're speaking,
right.
And so that's kind of our conversations that we're having. Obviously, it's very important. I think we all know we need a process and we need to be definitive and provide guidance and all that kind of stuff. But exactly what that is and where it resides, it's
still unclear. Yes, we're going to use that old adage about trying to change the tire on a car going 60 miles an hour, which is where we are right now. One of the things, though, that as the subcommittee worked on this, that we looked at, we had deep conversations about developing a new model that would be the program of study model. After going through the Wecm revision workshop with real estate and the program of study last summer, and going through that process again this summer, the reality is we already have those models in place. If you take the Model 5 which is putting together kind of a new program, and you combine it with Model 1, which is review and revision of existing courses. That is the development, I believe, of program of study. It's the merging of those two models. But what I also heard from discussions earlier today is that CoBoard would like us to go back and revisit Model 2, because as Faye explained, Model 2 is really designed just for colleges, very few colleges who have a particular program in the state, such as insurance. But what I heard, kind of proposed from Donna earlier was that maybe that Model 2, which is conference calls primarily instead of group face-to-face meetings, could be used for programs and for courses in Wecm that are in good shape and really do not need major revisions or major overhauls. That's something that the committee is going to need to bring back to the group. So,
yeah, I think the question is, how do we engage the faculty in a method that is economical and is convenient? And I guess Faye said something about people doing this during summer, during vacation time, or something. How do we keep the courses current, relevant, all those kind of things, which I think we're all 100% on board with that page. But then how do we maximize the investment, not only from the Perkins money, which is what's funding this stuff, but then from a college point of view of them funding it, whether they do it out of their Perkins basic grant or if they use local money, whatever the source of the money is. How do we maximize that? And then at the same time, which almost doesn't make sense, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, is how do we make it as inclusive as possible? And so perhaps if we use technology such as net meeting as an example, perhaps could we invite all of the department chairs, coordinators, whatever their titles are, faculty that have an auto body repair program as an example, if that's a discipline that hasn't had much change, could we invite all of them to facilitate and take place in a process over a course of a meeting over an afternoon or whatever? But then perhaps some of the disciplines that have perhaps more change, perhaps the health sciences, perhaps we need to have a convening for those. But then again, make it just as inclusive. And y'all know this because y'all partnered with us on this, but when we invited the health sciences to the meeting we had in February, we said that if you'd submitted a proposal for a compelling academic, for an exemption to the 60-hour limitation, that we stopped just short of saying you're required to attend.
Right.
I don't remember what word we used, but then we said that if you changed, that you're encouraged to attend. And so, again, we were looking for bringing the field together and having that dialogue, which I think we all know is such an important piece. And of course, how do we have that dialogue, as you're talking, Catherine, the Model 2, Model 5 metamorphosis thing that you're describing, and bring business and industry into this, because that's a piece of it as well.
That's right.
And that's the business and industry fits in the Model 5 beautifully.
Right.
And I think we changed some of the wording. Don, our historian on staff here, that was the one that's like for emerging.
That's correct.
Technology.
When we created the Model 5 was actually when Faye and I were co-facilitators for semiconductor technology, because we had no semiconductor programs in Texas at the time.
Right.
Therefore, we had no faculty as instructional specialists. So we had to use business and industry experts as the content experts. So we created the Model 5 as the basis for doing Wecm course development.
So what we had done as part of our discussions was to have taken the Model 5 and expanded. It was not just for then emerging technologies going forward, but for any programs that needed to be reviewed. And then I think we had looked at revising some of the triggering mechanisms. So and not to belabor this, Chair, but I think it needs to go back again based on the information we now have, the legislation that we know is now going into statute, the regs are going to be developed, that we will bring forth new protocols as soon as we have a little bit clearer picture as to how the programs of study fit into this. I am going to need to regretfully replace one of my committee members.
Yes. Well, would it be possible just for Kurt and Jeff and you to continue the work?
We can continue, yes, unless there is someone else who's passionate about protocols.
Well, I'll be glad to kind
of
serve in that capacity then, too.
Okay. And that is my report.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask a question before Madam Chair-elect closes her report. You started off by asking us to consider, or as a possible consideration, because of the duplication of the GIPWE and the information in the first chapter of the protocols. And looking at that and going to the website, as we've talked about having new instructors that are coming to the table, that are in our workshops that don't understand a lot of the information. I think what has happened in this whole transition of the Wecm and how it's set up and the page, and all the information is there. So as a new instructor that probably is not familiar with the GIPWE, not familiar with the Wecm, but I know what my courses look like. I know my content. I'm the SME of that. When I go to the Wecm website and I look and it says Wecm protocol, I'm going to click on that because I want to be prepared, just like I prepare for a classroom, to look at that.
That's a good point.
Then in that workshop, then I'm armed with these are the protocols. Not only am I then learning content from the GIPWE and learning those words there, I'm learning this whole information here. So while I think it's duplicated, I think for another year as you proposed, as we go through a transition year, we've talked about orientation. These were written well to provide an orientation to not only existing people, but new instructional specialists that we're saying we're getting. And because it is open, if we're inviting business and industry, if they go to that website and they look at that, they see what those protocols are, and they learn from it. So, as you opened it up and said, what do you all think? Of course, I have an opinion. So.
That was a good observation.
Okay,
Thank you, Joy.
Looking at keeping the Chapter 1 then as an additional resource for our folks out in the field.
Yeah, because they're going to look at it's all there, one package, and it's easier to get to.
Thank you. I will tell you that there's one thing that we did decide that we were going to do was to provide an expanded table of contents for this, because if you're familiar with it now, you have to go through page by page to try and find what it is you're looking for. So we had already gone in, and with each title, you know how you can automatically set up a table of contents, and that was very easy. There were other, and these are minor things, but when you talk about a unique course, well, in our world, in Wecm, a unique course just means, a special topic course or a local need course is a unique course. But on the ACGM side, we have unique need course. So we were going through and making modifications to words so that there would be a lack of confusion, there.
To enhance clarity.
Exactly. So as soon as, we're ready to do another task force meeting, we'll have presentation for the task force.
Very good.
Don, if I could.
Yes.
If I could maybe. Catherine, you mentioned that there wasn't a definition of a semester credit hour, if I understood correctly.
What Dina had sent an email, she had discussed with me, and she had sent an email to Catherine indicating that she could not find in the GIPWE or in the Wecm Protocol Manual a specific definition of what constitutes how to calculate a credit hour. And that's mandated by U.S. Department of Education for Title IV funding purposes, especially now for CBE, competency-based education programs. And so basically, we're just needing to make sure that institutions in Texas have a resource that they can go to for the definition of a credit hour.
Gary, it's in the financial aid manual, but it's not necessarily in our guidelines that we have, but it is in the financial aid manual.
Well, and I guess my question, and I'm not sure if I want to do this as an open forum, but, the Department of Ed has a Dear Colleague letter out there where they give the federal definition of a credit hour.
Correct.
And they give basically 4 bullet points that you have to have a process.
Right.
And then basically that you have a validity and educational purpose for your process.
Right.
And then they defer to the regional accreditor for that.
Right.
So I wonder why.
Right. We don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Then that and of course there's ongoing conversation here about CBE and prior learning assessment and all these other things that we know that are occurring, and then I guess that the reason I say that is perhaps a sense of reservation of I don't want us to go in and create some definition that runs us afoul.
No.
Oh, no.
We don't want to do that.
No.
That's for sure.
No. What we would be doing is comparing the information that Dina sent. There's nothing finalized in the document yet, but that's something we'll take into consideration.
Okay. And with that, it looks like for the most part of your session, and to help you get finished, I'm going to step out and be quiet. If I step out and be quiet, I mean I'm going to leave if that's okay. And Dwayne can speak
Gary.
for me the rest of the afternoon, and he can just say Gary said, and I'll deal with it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank y'all.
Well, actually, this is an actual opportune time for Dr. Tomerlin to go ahead and step away. We are at about 11:47 or 43, something like that. Anyway, we are going to take a lunch break that will also include an executive session. And we will return on recording at an hour from now at approximately 12:45. So we're going to break now for executive session and then lunch.
That was funny.
And hopefully, there we go. Under item number 8, which is new business, I will report the results of the nominations and elections process formally. So we were in executive committee. Is comprised of Chair Don Perry, me, the immediate past Chair Raphael Barista, Chair-elect Catherine O'Brien, Fiscal Agent Jeff Parks, and the Coordinating Board Representative Dwayne Hiller. We met via conference call on July the 7th at 8:30 a.m. to discuss the nominations and elections process for the 2015-16 academic year. Based on Protocol 4-0203, the following at-large membership positions are up for nomination and election during odd-number years. Position member number 4, member number 8, member number 9, and member number 10. That same protocol stipulates that a member may not serve more than 2 consecutive 2-year terms without having to sit out for at least 1 year before being considered again for membership. Kirk White in position number 8 and Steve Davis in position number 9 have each reached a term limit. Protocol 4-0203 does allow up to a total of 3 persons to serve as ex officio members. Terry Nix is currently the only person serving as ex officio. Member position number 9 is currently filled by Dina Savage, and she is eligible to serve an additional 2-year term. Position number 4 is currently filled by Joe Garcia, and he is eligible to serve another term. However, Joe indicated that given his new job responsibilities, that he requested not to serve officially on the committee, but he would continue to assist the project staff at project request. Therefore, the executive committee made the following nominations for persons for the following positions. At-large position number 4, Shanna Drury. At-large position number 8, Terry Nix. At-large position number 9, Dina Savage. At-large position number 10, Joe Arrington. Ex officio position number 1, Kirk White. Ex officio position number 2, Steve Davis. The executive committee was also notified by Robin Garrett that she had accepted a new position out of state. She is currently serving in at-large position number 1, which is normally not up until even-numbered years. So the executive committee nominated Cynthia Kasparis from Lone Star College Tomball campus to serve the remaining of Robin's term. The executive committee asked Faye Murphy to contact all these individuals. They agreed to have their names put before the full Wecm Leadership Committee for today for consideration for election. And it's my pleasure to announce that all of the nominated positions have now been elected. So again, to repeat one last time, at-large position number 4 is now filled by Shana Drury. At-large position number 8, Terry Nix. At-large position number 9, Dina Savage. At-large position number 10, Joe Arrington. Ex officio position number 1, Kirk White. Ex officio position number 2, Steve Davis. And the at-large position, member number 1, to fill out the remaining of the term, is Cynthia Kasparis. So thank you for this election, and we'll look forward to another successful academic year with the folks that have now been elected. Thank you for all agreeing to serve. Okay, it's now my pleasure to talk about where we need to go for this new year. Just like we're all preparing for a new academic year at our institutions, we need to do the same thing in terms of preparation for the next round of Wecm workshops. So Dr. Murphy and I have talked throughout the summer, and she has some information to present to the leadership committee about where we need to go in preparations for next year's workshops. Faye?
Did you want to say something about the grant before we get started?
Yeah, in preparation for this year's proposal, when we submitted it, we originally had submitted it to include both programs of study and Wecm together, and we've had that conversation this morning. And we had put the pre-proposal together, and the proposal based on the direction that we had been tasked with for by the task force to prepare for next year's Wecm courses that we were going to review, and also development of those programs of study. Due to the legislation, we were asked by the coordinating board to take out the program of study portion of the grant, and we rewrote the grant and reanalyze the budget and change the budget based on what was necessary for Wecm only. And we resubmitted that. And in fact, I got my letter today from our grants office that has been forwarded to the coordinating board as far as the signed copy of the signature page from our grants office and our chancellor. So we have everything submitted for Wecm for next year, and Faye will give us a rundown of the direction that we're going to be headed with everything. Thank you.
First, I want to let you know that I will be half-time, not full-time next year. I don't think that's going to impact anything because, after all, I have a cell phone and I have a computer, and I'm very near both all the time. But I don't know how I'm going to work other than I'm supposed to be half-time. And Karen, pardon me, what'd you say?
You've got a very nice office.
I didn't hear what you said. I do have a very nice office. It's a pleasant office, and I like being there. I also have the opportunity to go to San Jac and serve in my office there because I do have an office there, as you all know. You've seen my office. Karen will be 40%. She will work on grants, not only this leadership Perkins grant, but she'll be working with the basic grant as well and other things. So basically, I will say this change did not impact us in a negative way, not at all. So we'll move right on, and you probably will not notice the difference. Back to your booklet. On page 28, I have provided the list of goals. And of course, under the goals, as you know, there are many activities, but we'll focus only on the goals as we begin to look at what we're going to do. We will continue to refine strategies for developing and maintaining Wecm maintenance. And you all, this may be more involved this year than it has been in the past, simply because we have to continue to work with the coordinating board as they develop guidelines for programs of study. And certainly we'll work with them all the way so that any expertise we have will be shared with them. We will have 4 workshops, you all, and I think you heard me say many times last year, oh, this year is going to be so hard. And it is going to be hard. One of the things that we'll have a meeting early in the fall where we'll really get in and we'll talk about how we're going to handle this. But there are a lot of courses, there are a lot of rubrics, and 4 weeks is difficult because we learned last year, not this current year, that when you spread it out over 4 weeks, you're getting into July if you're not careful. It'll get pretty close to July, and the faculty members just really don't want to travel. They're ready for a vacation. So we're going to have to carefully plan these workshops based on the content and what these faculty members are doing. And so while you'll see it, workshop 1, 2, 3, 4, right now, it's based on the order of the clusters we'll be working on. That's not necessarily the way we'll address the workshops. We'll have to decide who are the faculty members that will come and how many of these faculty members teach all summer. And if they teach all summer, then you can be assured that we have to have it earlier or we will not have faculty members. We will have we'll cover 4 clusters: art, audio, video, technology and communication, information technology, and I think information technology is the cluster that Gary was referring to when he said some of our courses had not been reviewed in a good long while. And you know the technology does impact these courses. So we'll want to be sure that we get a very large group of faculty members there to work on these so we get good information. Manufacturing. According to Jeff, he said he facilitated this workshop the last time that it was held, and it was a big job. And as I look at it, I've broken it into 13 teams. We don't have 13 rooms. So basically, we're really going to have to go back and look to see how can we do this. And I'm hoping that it does not mean that it's so impossible for us to have this in one workshop. But we'll have to, that's what I'll have you all work on. I'm looking forward to working with Raphael, particularly because this is really his area, and Dwayne, this is your area too. And maybe you can give us some suggestions. I don't have suggestions. I've laid it out. I've reviewed it. I will say that when I did research in this area, I found 4 rubrics that, according to the data that I had, which came from Dwayne, and I created a pivot table, we have 4 rubrics that are not required in any programs in the state of Texas. But we must caution ourselves when we begin to make that kind of decision. Continuing ed may be using these courses, or maybe they're used as an option and it just doesn't show up. So I don't know. We're really going to have to study and try to figure out what we're doing and be sure that we're using the right data to make decisions. And the last is transportation, and this will probably be the smallest workshop in terms of teams, but probably one of the biggest in terms of faculty members, and we look forward to working with this particular group. Aviation will be a part of that group, and we are continuing to watch what goes on with FAA, because if changes are made, then that will impact this area, and we probably will begin to look at it in a different way. I understand that there are major changes that they're making in the regulations, but they have not passed. Not very hopeful, Don. That's going to happen.
So far, they have not gotten even to the beyond the proposed rules part. So I don't know.
And Don, just to clarify, is it all about drone technology? And
no, it's not actually.
It's across the board.
Really, that's not even the major issue. It really has to do more with. I mean, there's still curriculum, believe it or not, in aviation maintenance that talks about material and doping, like the old material wing cover.
Oh.
I mean, those rules
like
go that far back.
Wings, yeah.
So they don't cover all of the new technologies, and so they've been in the process for about 7 or 8 years trying to do these rules changes. They just got around to doing some preliminary things about 2 years ago, and then nothing has come out of FAA since then. So the faculty around the state who are in these aviation programs keep hearing. They go to these national meetings. They keep hearing that, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And they're concerned about the inspection and certifications and all of that. But until there's final rules that are released, there's nothing that can really be done. So everybody's just waiting for the federal government.
Our third objective will be to review, evaluate, and update the Wecm protocol. And Catherine, of course, has started that and will continue in that area. We will disseminate Wecm information to interested parties via Wecm comments. We don't get a lot of Wecm comments, but it seems that when I get a comment, I'm challenged and have to ask you all to give me help, because many times the comments are rather complex. So we will continue to do that, and as we begin to change and move toward programs of study, I anticipate that we'll have more comments from the Wecm comments page. We will conduct training for new Wecm facilitators in training that will be done during the TCCIL conference, pre-conference. And we want to get the word out, encourage those individuals that would like to be a part of this great leadership team to come for the training. We'll maintain reports for that document project activities. And you all, when I wrote this objective, I'm going, that's a little broader than it appears. One of the things that Jeff asked me to do last year was to work on something he'd started on, and that's a summary of all the people that have served on the leadership committee. And we actually went back to analyze what colleges have been represented over a long period of time. This may not seem like something that's that important, but it is, okay? Why is it important? We want documentation that shows the involvement around the state. And, people come and go, but if you don't have a history, then you kind of sometimes don't realize what's going on. So, yes, we'll continue to do that and maintain records of participation. I have a very simple summary of all the faculty members that participated this year, the facilitators that participated, and I want to be able to roll that out so that when we actually go the next round, that we can send emails to them. Yeah, they may be returned, but at least we have a contact list to get directly to the faculty. So that's my goal. We're going to prepare the 2016-2017 Wecm workshop projections for career clusters, and that meaning in the spring, we need to come together to look at what we're going to do in 2017 so that we can develop a very realistic proposal. And we will be working on a large number of areas: agriculture, architecture and construction, education and training, government and public service, hospitality, tourism, and law and public service. You all, this group is kind of different, okay? You don't have many rubrics, you don't have many courses as compared to some of the others. But we're covering all of these different career clusters. So I don't know how we're going to handle this other than, well, we can have more than one career cluster at a workshop, and it may very well be that by the time we do our analysis that we can do it all in two. I don't know. But during this period of time, I've also pulled together so we can project out through 2018, and that's where our long-term plan is, so that we can begin to see what is realistic in terms of us being able to pull in groups and utilize the facilities if Sanjak continues to have the project. Then we want to be sure we have adequate facilities for these workshops. We felt that our workshop was pretty light this year, but with the combination of POS, I was grateful, okay? Because if we had had 4 workshops this year, I think that we would have had a challenge big time. The coordinating board asked us to include the next 2 goals in our final proposal. To draft, and we're talking about draft, this is recommendations, it's not final, but they want our input on protocol for programs of study. And then the next one is highly tied to what we're doing in planning, and that is to establish a list of programs of study priorities based on criteria established in the POS protocol. In other words, which program should we take first? And I think all of you have some ideas about that. But we probably would want to think about, do we want to make recommendations that can be tied to the programs, the clusters that we're going to be studying? You see what I'm saying? And that way we can continue a little bit of, they look at the program of study and immediately those will be the Wecm courses they will review. Okay? In the next area, the next page in your booklet, you will see the career clusters 3, art, audio, video, technology, and communication. And you can see that we have, this is kind of interesting, you all, we have a limited number of rubrics, but they have a lot of different zip codes. Now look at MUSC. So it's broken out into a lot of zip codes, but we use the same rubric. So whenever I look at this and I look at ARTC, it is listed in Career Cluster 3 as well as Career Cluster 11. So we need to decide, are the faculty members that are teaching the course that's classified as information technology, where are they located? Are they attached to media, or are they attached to IT?
Yeah, this has been a long historical discussion in this group about that. We've gone back and forth over the years, and in fact, we've had occasions in workshops going probably back 8 years where we basically said, ARTC, ARTV, and the issue around duplication, unnecessary duplication of course content. And we actually did away with some courses, archived some courses, and lo and behold, then we got all kinds of issues around the state because that course went away, and it had to do with, again, some old history related to faculty credentialing, SACs issues. And so then we wound up having some of these courses find their way back in with, a different course number, but back to their old rubric. Mm-hmm. So we've had historical issues related to some of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have fashion, for example. Fashion fell into 4 different zip codes. And so immediately, knowing that we have a very limited number of programs across the state, I think I talked with you all about it when we moved some of them from business.
Correct.
But ultimately, we're going to have those in 2017. But, again, they were in our ARTC, into that cluster. So this becomes a little bit of a challenge because we didn't start out with this master plan. And once it's implemented, then it's hard to back out of it. But probably most program developers didn't look at SIPs, they looked at rubrics. And they credentialed their faculty members based on, not SIPs, rubrics. So, now we have a complex situation, and we have to gradually eliminate some of these problems, and I think programs of study will help us move us in that direction, maybe. So you can see when you get to manufacturing, immediately you can see what the challenge is going to be. I tried to group them by doing a pivot table and sorting out which programs required more than one SIP, thinking that particularly in small colleges that someone who's teaching CETT might also be teaching PTAC. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm accurate at all. We're really going to have to spend some time working on this, and I do not know how we're going to go about it. So any ideas, I don't mind doing a little research. If you have ideas, send them, suggestions, send it to me and let me see if I can pull data. I'll ask for Dwayne to give me a little bit of help, but
I was going to
really
say,
hard.
Faye, this is where I think we can utilize assistance from the coordinating board in terms of data analysis.
And then, of course, the last one, I think the only challenge that I see with this one is the fact that automotive, really, they use one code for so many different courses, and it's very broad. It looks good on graduates, but it's really very broad. And so we may have to again go in and say, okay, what are these faculty members really doing, so that we can group them so that they get to review the courses that they're knowledgeable of. And that's what we plan to do next spring. We'll have to have facilitators trained because we've got a lot of jobs. And I hope that you all will be willing to provide the same support that you did this year. And that was just absolutely wonderful because we have to have trained facilitators or the faculty members really, really become confused. So I appreciate what you've done in the past, and I ask for your help again this year. Okay, Don?
Okay. I think what we need to do is spend a little bit of time this afternoon talking about what we're going to do specifically in terms of the FIT training for TCCIL. That's the first thing that we need to address as a group. It's coming up pretty quick. We need to have our plans together. We need to know who's doing what. So, yeah, who's going to be a part of the actual presentation process, and any of the materials that need to be put together, all of that has to be all done pretty quick.
I guess I want to say, what do we have that you consider to be a good starting point? Joe reworked a lot of materials, but I don't know whether they are so specific to the task that you don't get the overall view. And I'm just asking you. You all were there. You saw them. He continued to revamp them because we had too much information in the global presentations that we had in the past to do training for our workshop. So where do you want to go?
And we had, of course, it's been a long time since we've done actual FIT training, but we had at one time, Faye, a PowerPoint of the facility training that still should be, I guess, in the materials that you inherited from Midland College.
I do have it.
Okay. So that would be a good starting point to just get a sense of the topics that were covered for the facilitator and training. Certainly that PowerPoint is probably going to have to be totally revamped to bring it up to date, make sure that it's current in terms of everything that we have to address nowadays. But I think that would be a good starting point.
Mr. Chair, are you looking for someone to...
Well, basically what we've done in the past, and again, it's been several years now since we've done this, but we had about 4 or 5 people off the Wecm Leadership Committee who served as presenters during this pre-conference workshop. And you had the project staff, project director, and then, you had some folks that talked about, just the basic things of the protocol manual, how to run a team, dealing with, team dynamics kinds of rules, making sure that the quiet people are encouraged to talk and that the talkative people are encouraged to listen, and, all those kinds of things. So it was a training in a number of ways. It was a training on the tools that we provide to folks as facilitators, training about the protocol manual itself a little bit, training about how the workshops are set up, how they're run, kind of give a sense of the flow of the process of a Wecm workshop. Maybe some of these folks have never been in a Wecm workshop. So, because in essence, what you're trying to do is you take them through this training they are not necessarily, when they agree to attend the training, they're not signing a commitment to be a facilitator. They're agreeing to go through the training. At the end of the session, we give them an opportunity to express whether this is something they feel like they would like to be a part of. Some may say, well, I've got to think about it. So in essence, you kind of give them a commitment day that by this date, we need to hear from you whether you wish to have your name considered for the next round of facilitators in training. And that first time, they are actually assigned to work as an assistant to a facilitator. So they are strictly a facilitator in training their first time around.
And that's what I was going to point out, is that the training, the pre-conference is the first step.
Right.
And that they are actually paired. So when we think about next summer's workshops, we're not going to have a bunch of new fully trained facilitators available. No. We're going to have shadowing fits that can help, but we're going to still have to have the current facilitators on board to run all of the teams.
Right.
Don, I wanted to run through the qualifications from the protocol manual quickly. Community college or technical college workforce education administrator.
Right.
And that is from the level of what?
It doesn't, just however they're classified as an administrator.
Administrator. So, for example, if you have a program director at your institution and that program director is classified as faculty, then they're not. So, you know, that's one of the first steps, is this person is supposed to have had administrative duties at their own individual college.
Correct.
And this is someone who uses the Wecm and then is learning to be a facilitator at a future workshop. Roles and responsibilities: review all the course materials prior to the workshop, attend consulting facilitator training, and or refresher courses prior to a workshop, and then assist the team consulting facilitator. Remember, we changed the name of the facilitators a couple of years ago to consulting facilitator.
Right. So, Faye, I think what needs to occur is you will need to communicate with this group pretty quickly, see who is willing to serve as a volunteer for the FIT pre-conference, and kind of help decide, you know, what role everybody's going to play in that training process.
I wanted to respond to something Kurt said. As I see this, and I want your opinion, we could actually have a fit or fits to work in workshop 1 as a fit.
Correct.
And then be ready to
That's
go.
right.
As a matter
Correct.
of fact, in planning this,
That's
and I
right.
know that we really are kind of short on facilitators at this point, but I knew that this last year was going to be small, and so we would not get to use them. So I chose not to have training.
But
for that reason.
You are correct. The fits, it's just their first time out the door. They're paired. So if they wanted to be in the first workshop and then do maybe the second or third workshop as a full facilitator, that would work.
So as I'm envisioning a form that I will have them sign, I will say, you know, you must be willing to give up 2.
And that actually
weeks.
would be very good, because in the past, sometimes it's happened is that they've been a fit one summer and then they're full facilitator next summer, and there's been so much time, they've lost what they've learned.
Right.
So if we do ask them to commit to twice in the summer to get completely through the process, that would be a good thing.
Yep.
Well, that was my plan, okay?
That's good, yeah.
So, I don't know. How do you feel, Megan? You were one of those that got caught up in this
flag of time.
Yeah.
I absolutely do think back-to-back would be a really healthy thing for a fit. Because, I think I went 1, if not 2 years before I actually facilitated. So, I think that's something
and then we
should
were
try to
fortunate
do.
enough to get to use her more than once in the summer,
Yeah.
so she became a real pro. But it did help you to do the two in one summer.
Yeah.
She was grateful when she was able to do that. So.
I had one question, I guess, actually for Catherine. When you're looking at that protocol and it says an administrator, I don't know that may be something that we need to look at on a definition basis, because we have lead instructors at some colleges that they deal directly with the Wecm. They do those types of things.
Right.
And to be completely honest with you, the first time I was a fit and a facilitator, I would not have fallen under that administrative category at that point in time. So I don't know, that may be something that we need to look at as a definition or, changing.
And we have been reviewing that as we've been going through the protocol. We've been having discussions about that because of the fact that we need to look at what our leadership base is within the state of Texas, and we need to continue to expand those opportunities to people to move into those leadership positions.
I think we have to be careful, though. We want to make sure that we don't have a person who's has some vested interest in a particular discipline.
Right, and I would completely understand having a recommendation from their direct, an administrator or someone of that. I've got a person in mind specifically, again, that is one of those lead instructors I think would be a very good fit, but according to that definition, would not qualify.
Right.
Yeah. Got it. I think another thing that I worry about this too, because I read the definition, I went, oh, I wonder if we're in compliance. But colleges differ in the way that they identify administrators.
Right.
So as I see that some of the colleges are kind of cutting back, we may see some positions that were administrator, now administrator instructor. Right. So it's something we need to look at.
The only other thing I would add to that is when deciding which workshops to have fits and which workshops to then have them act in their first role as facilitator, is be careful about the complexity of the teams in the workshop and not just throw them in for their first team to be, for instance, information tech.
Let's.
Right.
Joe also brings up a point, brain cells just clicked in, is we have reviewed fits as they have gone through the initial training at a pre-conference, and then as they have served as fits at that first workshop, and then decided they were not a good fit as a fit.
Right.
And we have to think about this
just
too.
An automatic.
Yes, because, if we build our schedule around having them, thinking we're going to have a fit to cover workshops 2, 3, and 4 now as a consulting facilitator, we may end up with some issues. So. Okay.
I think you're right. I think we have a lot of factors to consider there. Yeah. And first of all, remember, you all fill the slots first, okay? And so as we are asking you all to fill the slots as facilitators, then we want to carefully determine where we might place a fit, okay? Because you know the areas, the faculty, the members that are going to be a challenge and those that won't be.
Haven't we typically had a meeting of this body to review the results, the feedback? See, I don't see a meeting occurring.
Well, we will.
Yeah, put that on the agenda too. Right. After workshop 1, we'll have to have a meeting before we make the decisions about final
and that
decisions.
may have to be a virtual meeting, but
exactly.
Yep.
Any other comments? But just let me know. and let me know what you want to do, and I'll begin to create the schedule around that.
Let me say, Shanna, do we, as a member of TACTI, do we have anything scheduled as a pre-conference for the TACTI this year?
TCCIL.
I'm thinking, yes, because I looked at them before I turned to you. So
the FIT training will be the pre-conference to TCCIL.
Okay.
So that'll be October 7th.
That's okay.
And Faye, I'll need, if you can give me a time frame and what type of room you're going to need, I'll make sure that we have those facilities set up at the Omni for you.
Asking you all, what do we need? Because
I don't know if it's 9 to 12, is it 8 to 12? How much?
Normally we've had a room that would accommodate 25 to 30 people.
Okay.
One big open space where they could have like round tables, that kind of thing. And it's usually been a half day before, because when we've done it before TACE, it was like 9 to 12.
And the conference starts at 1.
Yeah, it just depends on when your conference actually kicks off. Maybe leave a little half hour between.
9 to 12 will be fine.
Yep.
Internet access?
Yes. Well, I think as the current chair, I need to be a part of that too.
We probably will have some who would like to participate in this as their first facilitation experience.
Okay, anything else on this topic? Okay, in terms of an earlier, very brief discussion, I would like to just inquire, and again, Gary, not trying to be difficult in any way, but what is the status of the Wecm 101?
I'm not 100% sure, to tell you the truth. I'll have to get with Mindy.
Okay.
I think the last time we discussed it, we had given it to this group, and I guess y'all provided edits. And,
right, we did.
And I'll have to see where that is. And, certainly not throwing Mindy under the bus, but obviously we've done session, which for 6 months around here, that's pretty much what we do.
I understand.
But we'll take a look at it and try to finish incorporating and try to figure out where we are on trying to get it up and posted.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. For those of you who are a little new, we've been working on a basic orientation to Wecm that can be posted on the website at the coordinating board, so that folks can get a general overview and understanding of the use of Wecm, the reason for the Wecm. So I guess it's kind of the augmentation between the GIPWE, the Wecm Protocol Manual, and it's a little bit more instructive, if you will, of the reason for the Wecm and how it needs to be used. Again, as we know, there's a lot of turnover going on at our institutions. That's always been true in CE, but it's even more true on the credit side now than it used to be. We have a lot of folks who are coming from other states who are assuming positions of leadership at our institutions. And so whether it's GIPWE, Wecm, ACGM, all of that alphabet soup to folks who come from another state. And so that's one of the things that we need to continue to strive to do, is to provide professional development for folks who are in leadership positions, as well as those folks who are the direct users, being faculty and program staff. In terms of deciding how we're going to function and work this year, we have had for a number of years a subgroup of the leadership group who assists the leadership group in thinking through the nuts and bolts of what we do for the Wecm workshops. And we call that the Wecm Task Group. This meeting today, if this were a normal cycle for us, yesterday would have been the task group meeting, so that we could report out today to you our recommendations, so that the full leadership committee could hear the recommendations of the task group and then make suggestions for changes, and then voting to accept the recommendations as presented or as amended. So again, given the workload of what we've got to deal with for next year, I think we're going to need to continue to have the task group meet. Our protocols say that we need to meet on a quarterly basis. We made a decision when we met in February not to meet during the third quarter, because that was right before the workshop, and the feeling was that everything that needed to be done for the workshop, it was too late to do anything if we tried to meet in March or April. We had our meeting in February. But as we discovered later on, I think after having that workshop, we probably could have benefited from having a meeting one final time before the workshop. That might have put some extra pressure on the staff to get ready for a meeting while they're getting ready for the workshop. But anyway.
Actually, Don, we did have a conference call, you remember?
I know we did.
And that did help, and we felt that we could not schedule another meeting because we had been meeting so many times.
Right. So what I'm trying to lead up to, though, is that we need to go ahead and establish pretty quickly a meeting list of dates for this entire year. I don't think we can sit here and do that today, but Faye, I would ask that you and Karen take a look at the calendar, and y'all need to work with Dwayne, because Dwayne's going to have to give you availability of this room. In fact, I was looking at something else that was shared just a few days ago at the formula funding committees, and attached to that was a worksheet of boardroom availability for half this coming year. And it was amazing to me how few dates this room is available in September, October, November, December. Y'all have meetings in this room now constantly. Yep. So that will be a challenge, Faye, is coming up with a doodle poll of dates for the leadership meeting on a quarterly basis where this boardroom is available. So Dwayne's going to have to help work with y'all on that.
I only have one question, and that is, I really think I need a meeting as soon as we can hold a meeting.
I understand.
Would it be possible for us to meet in September? Now, I know that may be a real busy time, because remember, we're going to be at TCCIL in October. Would it be possible for us to think about scheduling something in September?
Well, listen, you're wanting a task group first, right?
I want a task group followed by leadership.
Now, if I'm reading this correctly, because I brought this out of that document, I see the 16th of September and the 29th of September, and that's it for this room. Only 2 days.
And they're not consecutive.
Friday the 11th. September the 11th. Right.
Well, we could have the task group meeting in another room, though. Right.
Yeah.
September the 11th, I didn't even include because that's so close to the start of school.
Yeah, true. Right now, possible for you.
That looks good on my calendar. A task group on the 15th and a...
Friday the 25th is open.
It's showing red on this one. I don't know. Dwayne, look at this and see if you maybe this has been modified.
Yeah.
Nothing's reserved.
Yes,
Why don't we look at the 10th and 11th? I mean, that's 3 weeks in.
That's perfect.
What's that?
Why don't we look at the 10th and 11th?
Our classes actually
right.
start
We're 3
August
weeks in.
24th.
Right.
And Labor Day is September 7th, but the
Okay.
10th and 11th,
Okay.
you're busy.
Yeah, are you?
10th and 11th?
Now, remembering that the task group.
Well, just off the top of my head, I don't have that list right in front of me, Faye, but
Joyce, Bert, Terry, you, Raphael,
right. It was Robin, but
and Robin, so.
Joyce.
And Dina.
and Dina.
Dina. Kurt.
Kurt.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Yeah, because Dina's not here. Dina's not here today, so we don't know about her availability. But okay.
Do you have a second option, or are you just going to go with that one and see how many people?
It's coming up so quick, let's just go with it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Dwayne, if you can go ahead and block it.
I'll be as fast as I can.
All right.
When you come to the leadership committee, kind of bring your calendar so that we can see what we can do for the rest of the year.
Faye, I'd like to go ahead before then. Let's do a doodle poll and do the whole year.
Okay. Okay.
It's
That'd
just
be
by
fine.
quarter. Just let's go ahead and
Okay.
nail them down.
Okay.
But by doing it by dual poll, you can then start seeing, visually who's going to be available and who's not.
I'll start with Dwayne and
Yes.
see what dates are possible,
Right.
and then Karen and I
Right.
will put the doodle poll together.
Great. Okay. Yes, sir, Joe.
Just wanted to let you know, I did find in the Dropbox the old FIT training PowerPoint.
I thought there was.
So if you want, I can go ahead and get working on putting those into the new template, and so that way you can be looking at them and ready for your meeting.
Great.
Or any modifications you need.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe.
And will you be saving it back into Dropbox as you work on it?
I'll do like I did with the other ones. I'll have a historical folder, but I'll put the new updated one that's ready for modification and send the link to that folder. So we won't lose any of the old data, but you'll have the new one that can be modified.
Okay.
And when he posts it, we will let all of you know, and we'll give you access to Dropbox so you can go directly in there.
Great.
And I hope that Dropbox is helpful to you all. I want to continue to work on my organization so that I don't give you too many materials and they're easy to access. I didn't know that you could have a link directly to a certain file, and Joe's going to teach me to do that this year.
Good. Do we have anything else that needs to come before this group today? Is there any topics? One of the things I asked Faye to do, and I'm going to continue to make sure that we do this each time before we have our meetings, is I will work with her to have an agenda, tentative preliminary agenda put together and sent to all of you a couple of weeks in advance. And then I am asking Faye to ask you if you have any items that you wish to have placed on the agenda that's not covered by something that we've put together. This is your committee. It's not just mine. It's not just Faye's. It's not just Jeff's. This is your committee. You have ownership of it. And so your ideas of what needs to be considered, concerns or issues or suggestions are more than welcome. In fact, they're needed. So we need all of you. We need your thoughts. And this is something that we're doing not just for our individual institutions, we're doing for the state. That's the reason why there are no college names on these name cards here. You're not representing your institution here. You're representing the state. So we appreciate the fact that you are here, and we want to benefit from your ideas. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I do have one, comment or statement regarding the programs of study process.
Yes.
And I know we discussed not starting with the advisory committees because we were looking at that wide state view versus the local view.
Right.
But the idea of the groundswell that Kurt was talking about, being able to go into an advisory committee meeting, since we've had those programs of study meetings, I've been to all of my technical advisory committees because I knew that automotive, auto body, and all those were coming up.
Right.
And to let them know that we actually ended up with 3 people in that management group making the decisions on a program of study that's statewide.
Right.
And not so much to get them overly excited about it, but for automotive and auto body in those areas, it filters up through whether it's Ford or GM or Chrysler or whomever's district representatives and larger training representatives, so we can get the word out to those very specific group areas.
Yes.
I realize Texas Workforce Commission is a great place to start and talk about, but again, if they're getting prodded from both sides of this, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Right. Dwayne, I appreciate your comment. I really do, and I concur with that. Again, you're speaking of a discipline area, if you will, an area of study, which is greatly driven by certification, by specific criteria. That's, as Faye had alluded to, that was not as true in the business area. So, in some of these discipline areas, programs of study areas, you're going to have almost naturally embedded ownership by business and industry. And it's going to be in those areas that we're going to generate a large interest from business and industry. I think the challenge will be in those areas where it's less defined. It's more ubiquitous, if you will, of who has ownership of this skill set in the workplace as an industry. If you're an engineer or technician, or if you're a welder, you can work for all kinds of different companies. Automotive is much more defined in terms of the industry type. And so when they're more defined, you got more buy-in from the industry types. Our challenge is when it's more diffuse, getting people in business community to feel the ownership of wanting to participate in these activities. But I also think we're going to be challenged, and this was one of the things that we probably the coordinating board is going to need to consider when it pulls its committee together, and that's to really get to use technology where we can. The fact of the matter is these business types, in many cases, they just flat can't afford to be away from work for 2 days to go to Houston or wherever we're going to have this thing. They just flat can't afford to be away from work that long. But we will be the losers for them not being able to be there because we need to benefit from their knowledge and their expertise. So somehow we're going to need to tap into what they know and what they recommend. And again, we may have to do some use of technology to get some of that kind of pre-assessed set of ideas about what they might want to recommend to us as a way to use that as a proxy, if you will, for their personal appearance. So there are a lot of things that need to be thought through on that side of it. But again, I think for right now, what our responsibility is to ensure that we are using good, innovative thoughts about how we can keep the Wecm running effective and efficiently. And so that's one of the things that the task group needs to do as well this year, is to think through recommendations to the full leadership committee about how we might want to streamline where needed our processes. So. All right, any other business? Well, again, folks, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you in September. Thank you.